Happy Friday, assuming you're watching this on Friday. You may very well not be. I hope you all are doing well. I have just finished giving feedback on all of your, excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm tired, checkpoints and your APA assignments. If you have questions about those, please get in touch. And I'm glad to set up meetings with you if necessary, either online or in person, whichever works for you. Also, please, if you are having trouble with anything, do let me know. I've met with several of you online and in person in the last week, and I think it's been helpful. I am happy to meet with you. I know you're distant students, but if you're on campus or if it's convenient to be on campus, I'm certainly happy to meet you in person. So you may have noticed a flurry of discussion board grading late at night this week. I finally got your Week 2 discussions graded, and I'm glad that how to mark a book resonated with a lot of you. I commented about this on some of your discussion posts. I really struggled with this idea of marking books. It was not something I wanted to do. I wanted to resell my books when I was in college, and my Shakespeare professor in college literally stood over my desk and forced me to mark in my book, so I did for the first time, and I got addicted. And as you might imagine, I kept that Shakespeare, the same Shakespeare text that I use now on the occasion I ever teach Shakespeare, which is very infrequently these days. That is the text that I pull out and use because I've got all of these notes in it. So I ended up, after that, keeping a lot more of my text, and for good reason. Now, that's not to say you have to write in your books. I'm not here to do that. I know some of you rent books, some of you want to resell them. I get it. But you know, using sticky notes, some of you mentioned that. That's something I do very frequently. Keeping a notepad alongside to write on. All of these are good things that you can do. And I know that we deal a lot with electronic texts these days. These articles that you all are working with, I know they're complex, they're hard. And so there's a lot to be said for actually having a printed copy of the text. I'm not out to slay trees, I'm not anti-environment, but you may find that it's helpful to print out your article you're working with, highlight it, annotate it, use sticky notes, color code, any of the tips that work for you. And, you know, we process information very differently when we write it by hand from when we copy or paste it or type it. There's a lot to be said for handwriting information, and if you're having a hard time retaining work or understanding work, it's a really good idea to try paraphrasing that. Some of you mentioned that in your discussion board post. Paraphrasing, when you put someone else's ideas into your own words, is a great way to test to make sure you're retaining material, and it's very helpful too to do when you're studying. I know there was a particular history class I struggled with in college, and I took copious notes on that text, and I took that class a second time, and the second time I got an A, and it wasn't because I had been exposed to the material twice, but it's because I had put so much time and effort into fully understanding the material. So I took something that was really complicated for me, really complex, really hard to remember, and I was able to paraphrase and summarize, you know, really dense paragraphs of information into these nuggets that I could understand. And since you're going to be working with this article and summarizing it for a general audience, starting with figuring out those main ideas, figuring out the really important information as you go through is going to be key for this project. So don't be afraid to print those articles out. You don't have to print the whole thing even. You know, if there's just a page where you're struggling with some passages, you know, some of these have pages and pages of references. You can delete. You don't have to print that part. Just print the pages that you really need if you're worried about using print quota or saving paper. So it's time to start drafting your essay. So this week I've gone easy on assignments, actual writing assignments, so that you can have the time to draft, to get feedback if you would like. So just a few things I'll mention. First of all, the title of your essay should not be the same as the title of the article you're summarizing. You are representing this information for a different audience, so come up with your own title that's still relevant. Quoting. There were some problems with quoting I saw in the APA assignments. Remember, if you are quoting from a text, if you're using someone's exact words, you need to enclose those in quotation marks. A quote should never be by itself in a sentence. You should introduce it or somehow otherwise anchor it in your text. You should have an in-text citation unless all of the information that would go in that citation has been used in the sentence. I did include quoting, paraphrasing, summarizing, reading in this week. You may want to go back and review that if you were having some trouble. Also, I've mentioned it before, the Purdue Online Writing Lab is a great resource, and our Writing and Reading Center is a good resource. Also, if you need some more intensive help, let me know. I'm glad to assist you. Another thing that's confusing about APA, in APA reference page entries, APA does not call for using title case for article titles, but you still do that in your actual text. So just something to keep in mind. It doesn't make sense. Unfortunately, nobody consulted me when they made these rules. I don't like it either. And another thing I'd like to mention too, it's okay to get some assistance with understanding your articles. You know, if you need to do a little bit of extra research, if you need to use some additional resources in order to understand something, that's okay. I just ask that you please make sure that you cite any sources that you use. Make sure that you cite everything that gets used. And the last thing I wanted to mention, so I did do a Collaborate session yesterday, a live session. Was not able to have any students join me, but first of all, it was in the middle of the day. Second of all, I forgot to post the announcement for it until the night before, so I understand you couldn't make it. That said, if you would like to access that session, and I hope you will, you can click on the Collaborate button in Blackboard. And once you're inside that area on the left side of the gray screen, you'll see a menu. It's 3 lines. If you click on that menu, select recorded sessions, it will take you to where the recorded sessions are stored, and you'll be able to click on yesterday's session and watch it. Next live session, I'm going to do one this Thursday at 1 p.m. If you can join, great. If you have questions and can't join, please email them to me in advance and I will tackle those. So this video got longer than I intended, I'm sorry, but I hope it's helpful. I hope it's informative. I hope you have a good and restful weekend, if at all possible. If you have questions or need help, as always, please send me an email or drop by my office, and I look forward to seeing more work from you this week. Take care.